A lot of founders, especially I think in the health space, they come in with like a pain that they feel, that like they understand personally, and compromising on your ability to help so many more people when you know that what you're building really helps them is a very hard decision to make. At the same time, when you build a company, you have to think both short term and long term, right? Short term, you have to get to certain milestones, you have to achieve certain things in order to be able to get, for instance, the funding or other resources. In the long run, hopefully you will be able to go and provide this to everybody, right? So my dream is and will always be to try and bring the highest level of ADHD care or neurodiversity care to as many people as I can across the globe.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Day One Diaries, the podcast that tells you all about the messy middle of starting your own business, leaving the comfortable confines of a 9-to-5 job and heading out into the world to see what it's got to throw at you. This week, I'm joined by Yves Mamane. Yves is the founder of a company called Agave Health. At Agave Health, they offer full-service holistic support for people with ADHD and other neurodivergencies. Now, I've known Yves for many, many years, but we hadn't connected in quite a while. So this was an amazing opportunity to track her journey from Google, where we worked together, right through to the business that she's created. There's a lot to learn and a lot to take in on this one. But two things I'd love you to pay attention to. Listen out for how meticulous Yves was as she planned out this business. But even before she left her previous role, she had thought through the financial runway that she had, people she may need to take on board, and the amount of research she had to do on a topic that she wasn't really that expert in. The second thing to look out for is the title of this episode, No Perfect Time, because for all of Yves' planning, life had a big surprise coming for her. And just a couple days after she left her previous role, she got the amazing news that she was pregnant with her first child. This is fantastic news for her family, but threw up a lot of questions for the business that she was just about to start. Should she keep going? Should she go back to work? And Yves had to make some big decisions over that time. She did make some big calls, and now with 2 little girls and the business, she's really got her hands full. We discuss all this in detail, and these are just some of the questions that you have to go through as a business owner. Folks, I think you're really going to enjoy this honest conversation with Yves. And remember, if you want more, hit subscribe because we'll have a new episode of Day One Diaries every 2 weeks. Welcome, Yves. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm really, really glad that we could reconnect and that we could talk about the amazing journey that you've been on with your business over the last while. And before we get into that, do you want to just give us a little bit of background, maybe where you are and some of the roles, the 9-to-5 roles that you had prior to starting on your own?
Yeah, definitely. So a little bit of background. I'm originally from Switzerland. I live in Israel. I met you while I was in Ireland, obviously. And my 9-to-5 roles have always been in like marketing, tech, digital marketing mostly. I worked at a bunch of really interesting companies coming out of Israel, including Wix and Fiverr. And when I was at Google, I was working on the French market, so I worked with a bunch of French brands, which was pretty cool. So yeah, I was always sort of in growth and marketing teams. And after Google, I sort of moved into leading teams like that in various startups. So that was sort of my 9-to-5 jobs. Which never felt like 9-to-5, by the way. It's kind of a thing, right? You work in tech and it's not 9-to-5 at all. It's like 7-to-7 or something like this. And yeah, and after almost a decade like that, I decided to leave everything and build my own company.
Right.
And that's what led me to Agave. And so in the last 3 years, I've been the co-founder and chief revenue officer of Agave Health.
Right. Nice. So we'll chat a little bit about that transition and that move. But first, let's find out, what is Agave Health? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. So we basically built the first virtual clinic for adults with ADHD, with the goal really of building not just a virtual clinic for people with ADHD, but for neurodiverse people in general. So people who have autism, dyslexia, dysgraphia, all sorts of, neurodevelopmental disorders like that. And so what we basically do is that we try to, bring care to as many people as possible, and a more comprehensive approach to care, so that the care that you get is not only based on medication, but more on behavioral interventions, like psychology and coaching and all of these things that really help you sort of build habits and tools to really manage your neurodiversity, as opposed to take a pill, forget it for 8 hours, and then deal with the side effects of it.
Awesome. Wow. Lots of questions and so many. It's so interesting. So I guess first of all, what drew you to the neurodivergent healthcare world? Was there a particular interest or an opportunity? What sort of brought you into that space?
Yeah, so my husband has ADHD. It's a good driver. So basically, it was through his experience that I got exposed to all of that, because he was diagnosed in adulthood, and he received medication like pretty much everybody else who gets diagnosed in adulthood. And when he started to develop significant side effects to the medication, this is when I started to look into it with him at first, to help him find other ways of coping with his symptoms. And this sort of led me onto this whole journey of understanding how big of an issue this is, how uniquely ADHD is experienced by each person who has it, and also to see sort of how, the traditional care is very narrow and really focused on medication, and doesn't actually help the person find autonomy and independence in their diagnosis. And so once, luckily, for my husband, we really managed to put together a much more robust care program for him that included a coach and a therapist who specialized for ADHD and all of this stuff. I sort of, quickly came to the understanding that it couldn't be that there are millions of people just like my husband around the globe, and everybody gets the same pill, right? I mean,
Right.
whatever, Adderall, Ritalin, whatever it is. And actually, all you need to do is to bring all the pieces of the puzzle together, and figure out a smart way to put them together. And then you can bring much more care to much more people. So once I understood that, I said, you know what? This is definitely an issue that's worth pursuing. Part of my research also led me to understand that it's, there's a genetic component to it. So I understood that if I have kids with this guy, then it's going to be a long-term problem for me. So I might as well start resolving it now.
Is the service open to, just someone who realizes they are is diagnosed with ADHD or some other neurodivergency, and they can just go to the website and buy a package, or are you focused on selling to companies? How are you set up?
Yeah, so it's an excellent question, and probably one of the biggest pain points. Because as you understand, right, I got into this with the goal of helping as many people as we can, right? And then, you start and you bump into the realities of the real world, and you realize that it's not that easy to just help everybody. And so today, first of all, we're currently only available in the United States. This is more of a logistical issue. Like, from the moment that you have a human component of care, for us, it's, coaching and therapy. These are real coaches, real therapists that work with us. Then opening a new location requires you to build a team in that location. So right now we're only focused on the US. And the other thing is, so you can technically download the app from the App Store or the Play Store, and you can start getting care, and you can buy a package that allows you to, like a monthly subscription that allows you to get all of the care. We also provide diagnosis, by the way, so this is also something that you
Well,
can get through us. But our main go-to market is through employers, because in the United States, the healthcare system is very, very different to what you and I are used to in Ireland and Israel, where you have a universal healthcare component, which doesn't exist over there. And so as a result, the biggest sort of push from a go-to-market standpoint that we do is really to partner with health plans and employers, particularly self-insured employers. So we're talking rather large employers, in order to give that as a benefit to their employees.
You started off with the the idea for the business, the idea for helping people, and the sort of the uh, that was your goal. And in a relatively short time, you were able to recognize that there was a geo restriction here, that you needed to focus on one important market. So you focus on the US. Their particular setup around healthcare meant that it was best to sell to companies. So you're in a relatively short period, you were able to recognize that actually it's not individuals everywhere around Europe or the US. It's actually the US and its companies. So you switch the business to
Yeah.
B2C in all locations to B2B in the US. Those pivots, were they hard to do or hard to recognize?
So identifying that issue wasn't that complicated, because if you looked at the data as your first source of truth, it stood out. You know what I mean? So identifying the issue it wasn't that um, hard. However, making the switch was not only hard, it was painful, because a lot of founders, especially I think in the health space, they come in with like a pain that they feel, that like they understand personally, either because they're going through it themselves, or because, just like me,
They've seen
someone
it,
they
or
love
yeah,
exactly going through it. And compromising on your ability to help so many more people when you know that what you're building really helps them is a very hard decision to make. Um, at the same time, when you build a company, you have to think both short term and long term, right? Short term, you have to get to certain milestones, you have to achieve certain things in order to be able to get, for instance, the funding or other resources that will allow you to do other things or to go further. In the long run, hopefully you will be able to go and provide this to everybody, right? So my
yeah.
dreams is and will always be to try and bring the highest level of ADHD care or neurodiversity care to as many people as I can across the globe. Uh, but it was a very hard process to come to peace with understanding that doing this in the short term is not the thing that we'll be able to do
Yeah.
without compromising on quality of care.
So that's a really interesting thing to have to tackle in your business. And it's that thing that I sort of call the passion versus the product. So, you set this up with the idea of helping people just like your husband.
Right.
And when the like you say, the data just points to, like, right now, given all things, it's going to be really hard to manage it like that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to pivot. We're going to have to change geo, change target market, etc. And that doesn't match to the original dream, the original passion, right? So that's I get that complexity and that difficulty. I really like the way you frame it, though, that like that you do see, or I should ask, do you see a route back to having the business set up in a certain way that way you can go further on just a straight up B2C offer, or offering things in a different way into the future that could come back closer to what you originally thought?
To be honest, I have to, because this is what makes me wake up in the morning. Like, my drive is to create care that really matters. So what makes me wake up in the morning and do the grind and keep fighting and stuff is the vision that eventually I will manage to bring this across borders. I will manage to bring this across, socioeconomic levels. Because if we don't do this, we haven't really changed anything. Um,
Yeah, you found a way to service and support some people,
yeah,
but probably not the ones that you thought of originally. That's
yeah,
I like that thought, though, of thinking long term and short term. I think it's necessary, because I think there can often be people who start off with a passion, start off with it, like, this is what I can do, and this is what the world needs. But there's an element of the customer's always right. Like, if the market isn't there, if the sums don't add up, you can't force people to buy it. You can't force people to be able to afford it or to be able to bring your team together and the rest of your costs that you referred to. So I think it's good to have that pragmatism and also the vision to be able to bring this back around over time. I want to step back a little bit and just talk about the roles that you had previously before you made the jump to start in Agave. You were 9 to 5 worker across the tech world and across some very interesting companies. At some point during that, you decided that you wanted to go and try something on your own. What was feeding that desire? Was there something in particular, or it was just an itch to try something?
Yeah. So I think, when you have a 9 to 5 job, the way that you experience this 9 to 5 job depends a lot on not just what you do and who you are and stuff, but also on the company you're working for and the culture in that company, like how things work there, and the manager or managers that you have, right? That can ruin your life or make it wonderful equally. Um, and I think that of all the places I worked in, probably Google, where we worked together, was the only one that was large enough and um, built in such way that it would allow me to like explore things horizontally very easily. And so I felt that in all my other roles, I was always within that box. And so I would get in, start a new role, be super excited and learn a ton of stuff. And quickly, I would get to the point where, okay, so now I'm like cruising, right? I'm not in
Mm,
I'm done with the hockey stick learning curve. And now what? And I'm just like, I realized that I'm not the type to stay in place. Like I need, you know, I'm like a child in a Montessori school. I need you to put me the thing a little bit higher so that I'm gonna go and try to catch it, right?
yeah.
So it was clear to me that I would need, in order for me to keep going, to keep like growing professionally speaking, I would need some sort of role that would allow me to go wide.
Mm,
And being a founder is probably as wide as you can go because you have to do everything. So
right. So your last job before starting Agave was at Simply, am I right?
yeah, that's correct. This whole sort of ordeal with my husband starting to get side effects and stuff happened while I was there. So this is what sort of led me to, all the research. And I think I knew long, long before, probably even before my time at Google, that at some point I would like to build something of my own,
Mm,
but I didn't have an idea. And so I think that what sparked me going that way was more the fact that now I had an idea. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
You had something now to
Yeah.
get hold of. Right. And how did you prepare in terms of finishing up at Simply? Like, did you have to spend some time thinking? Did you spend some time with family? Did you get finances in order, etc.? How did you get ready to say, okay, I'm gonna give this a go?
Yeah. I think that the most important thing, like the main thing I did was to get my finances in order, because I understood that, like, this was like as uncertain a path as I could take.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, I have to define a period of time during which I can try this out. If by the end of that period of time, the conclusion is this is not viable, or it's going to take me another X amount of additional time before I can actually bring in revenue, in like, I mean, personal revenue, right? It's a salary, or anything like that, then I stop, I look for a job, and I get back into the workforce. Little did I know that it would become irrelevant very soon, but but in theory, this is what I prepared the most for.
What do you mean it became irrelevant?
Right. So I made all of that plan and I was ready to go. And then I quit my job. I did my notice period. And then 2 weeks after I left, like 2 weeks after my notice period, um, a stick turned positive and I turned out to be pregnant. So all of my financial planning was like thrown in the garbage.
Wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, and I realized that, like, basically was 7 months from then, I was going to have a lot more expenses than planned.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, expenses is only one part of that. So I can't,
Right.
I can, a lot of people listening might be in a job and thinking, maybe someday like yourself thinking, I think I would like to build a company at some
Yeah.
point, or they may find themselves in a situation where they've an idea or an inspiration or something, but they're waiting on that one promotion that's about to come, the shares to come through in next year or whatever it is, or that they're gonna start a family or whatever it is that that's holding them back. And we often hear in this space that like I'm just waiting for the right time, but you are living proof that there is no such thing as the perfect time. So how did that like how did you handle that once and congratulations by the way, because despite it being a disruption to your to the business plans, it's fantastic news.
Yes, yes. No, it was great. It was great news, but it was definitely a curveball.
Yeah.
Um, I think, look, there's a couple of things that go into there. Like, first of all, to be completely transparent, it's not that I said, "Oh, okay, well, it will be fine." Like, really not. I mean, when I realized that I was pregnant, the first thing that I did was that I went to my doctor and I tried to understand how far along I was exactly, to understand how much time I had to make a choice.
Right.
Because I said, like, this is serious, I can't, I mean, I can't bring a child into the world and not be able to, keep
Support it.
them alive. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like I have to know that I can do this. So it wasn't an easy decision to go and do everything at once. To be completely transparent, in the end, I changed my plan. Originally, like from a professional standpoint, right? My plan was I stop working, I'm investigating this. Is this a viable business I could potentially build? Yes or no, right? And then from there, you move forward. So the plan changed from this to I have to make an income. And so I actually put together, I listed myself as like a small business owner and I started to give consulting hours so that I could make money and keep saving. Uh,
So you put the agave thing not on the back burner as such, but just alongside. So probably
yeah.
not committing as much time as you had originally planned.
Yes, or let's just say my days got a lot longer, because essentially I would say, okay, I mean, I sort of calculated a minimal amount of hours that I would need to work on the consulting piece in order to bring in enough, based on the financial planning I had made, and everything, like all the rest of the time that I would have, including what was supposed to be free time, would now go into investigating what would eventually become Agave.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And that plan came together. That worked out for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was very lucky that, since I had just stepped away from the workforce, I was still very connected. So I managed to, and I put all my effort there for like a few weeks. I said, okay, I need to find clients ASAP. Right. So I put a lot of effort there to make sure that I would have enough hours booked. I did all the networking that was necessary to align that. And then within really a couple of months, I was confident that I could have a certain income, that I could put it aside and do agave in parallel.
Can I then just talk about those early days? What did you do first? How did you feel when you just kind of hit what's the to-do list on day one, or the day one diary, as it were?
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to do was to really map. Like, I understood that I have to map three things: the problem, the solution, and the viability. Like, just to give you a timeline, I quit my job, my like 9 to 5 job I finished at like in the beginning of November, and we incorporated Agave in May. So it was about half a year, right? Within this half a year, I would say that I spent about 4 months just reading, reading to understand the problem from every angle. right? From, the market size, like how many people are we talking about? How are they spread around the globe? What are their ages, their race, their everything that there is to know about that. The second thing that I was reading about was mapping the solution. Like, what are the different things that have been shown to work, even if one like worked in a silo? What are all the studies that show that they've been working, and why and on whom, and what are the sample sizes? Like, really understand this in depth. And the viability, which was basically to understand, okay, what exists out there, right? What does the competitive landscape look like? I tried those products myself. I had my husband try a bunch, and also, basically understand like what is the space that I can get into, right? What kind of ocean is this, and what is the area that I could potentially come in and fill? So it was a lot of reading, and after, about 4 months of just reading and mapping these three things, this is when I said, okay, we have enough information to try and put an idea on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So the first audience we presented it to were like clinicians that we were actually advising with, and then in investors, because we were basically, like we incorporated in May, and right after we incorporated, we started pitching investors to raise a pre-seed so that we would have something to start with.
When you did give birth to daughter,
Yeah, my
your
daughter.
daughter, did you take much time off?
Yeah, I didn't, and that's one of the prices of being a founder,
Yeah.
mom too. I didn't take almost any time off. My When my daughter was born, so she was born in the end of July, and we incorporated in mid-May. So she was like really born in the beginning of it all, and she was actually born the day after we signed the term sheet with our lead investor of the pre-seed.
Wow.
So it was like in the middle of
That's a
everything.
lot.
We're, running pitches with a whole bunch of other people in parallel, and I was like in the hospital being like, "Oh my God, what is happening?" Like, so so eventually I took 6 weeks during which I didn't do individual work. I only joined meetings.
That's really impressive though. Like that shows a commitment to the business and continually to your family as well that I think is amazing. So I think really well done on that. And you have another little baby since, if I'm not mistaken.
I do, and he just came back, and he's behind me. I don't know if you can hear him.
Ah, good. He's making noise. That's what
But
he's supposed to do.
yes, yes, I have a son who's now 7 months old, and for him as well, because I'm a founder,
Yeah.
I also took 6 weeks.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. It was a little bit lighter because I have a team by now, so so I could take a little bit more off. Like I delegated more, but still 6 weeks is a very very little time.
It's very little. It's yeah. I know folks in the US will say that that's standard, but folks from Europe will feel that that's basically no time at all. That's as much vacation time as we get in a regular company. So yeah, yeah, wow. You did touch on something that I do want to chat about real quick. You have a team now, and you mentioned you've a head clinician. You have obviously yourself and Ori in the business. How many people are working at Agave, like employed by Agave?
Yeah, so we're six full-time employed people. And
Oh,
other than that, we have basically contractors. Like all of our care team is what we call in the US 1099. So they're contracted.
right. Okay. And roughly how many people do you have contracted in that way?
About 20.
Wow. 25, 26 people across the business. That's really really impressive at this stage. Um, are you happy with that? Do you think you're going to need more?
I think for what we need right now, it's okay. Um, Somehow it always feels like you don't have enough people because like you start growing your business and you have more and more things to do, and so you hire more people, but then you build more So you have even more things to do and you have to hire more people. With that said, though, I'm a very big fan of a lean team. I don't like overcrowded teams. I think we were actually lucky, I think, to work in specifically in a division in Google in Ireland that was managed in a very lean way. Like we were a large department, but if you looked at like the team sizes, we weren't large teams. We were very lean and really stretched. Like each person had a lot to do, and so
Yeah. When you looked at the revenue per person, it was
it
really,
was
really high in
right.
terms of the advertisers we serviced. And obviously we interacted and crossed over with lots of other teams who also worked with those. But you're right, I think it was a fairly tight-knit group doing a lot of work. And it sounds like as well you had similar experiences later on in the likes of Simply where you had broad broad control, but a lot to do,
Yes,
and
yes.
that as well.
And I think it's healthy. Like I prefer to keep teams that are always slightly smaller than you would like in order to be
Yeah,
comfortable, because I think that this is where, more innovation gets done and more like you have to chase efficiency when you're in that situation. And as a result, you achieve more efficiency as well. When you're too comfortable and there's like a comfortable amount of work for each person, we tend to get too, like in a cruising mode and there's less
yeah,
innovation.
yeah. There's the like that work fills a void type of thing. So if you've 4 days work and you've got 5 days, you'll keep yourself busy for the 5 days if you need to. Whereas when it's the opposite, you will cut what's not important,
Exactly.
and you absolutely have to do that. All right. Well, it is nearly time for us to wrap up. So before we do, tell us, how do we find out more about Agave Health? Who should look at it, and where can we find out?
Sure. So, first of all, you can find our app on the App Store or on the Play Store. You can also go to our website, agavehealth.com, and find out more about the services that we offer and what we do and all that stuff. You can follow us on LinkedIn. This is the place where we post the most updates about what we do. And generally speaking, if you work in the US and you want this as a benefit, send your benefit letter to us because we're selling.
One thing, Eve, that I really like to ask everyone who comes on the podcast: you made the decision to leave a 9 to 5 job to start your own thing. You've had the world of experience in doing it. Would you do it again?
Absolutely, in a heartbeat.
Eve, it has been really, really fascinating to dig into your time in your story and journey in starting off Agave Health. I gotta say congratulations. You've hit a lot of challenges along the way, but you've been really clear and steadfast about what you're trying to achieve and what success can look like. And I think you've pivoted, you've moved with the market, you've moved with your own personal life as well. I think I wish you and Agave the best of luck into the future.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Brian. It was great meeting again.
Nice one. Great to talk to you. Chat soon. Bye bye.